Welcome to The Fortunate Future. I'm your host, Limor Markman. One of the ways to invest in real estate without having to become a landlord and deal with all those headaches is to work with a developer. In fact, it's becoming more common for developers to offer property management as an option to buyers, purchasing for investment purposes, and then providing follow-up services upon completion. Regardless of whether you are investing in a standing building or a new development, due diligence is key. We'll be discussing the top elements to evaluate when exploring a managed real estate development. With me now is Mitch Parker, real estate wealth expert and founder of Mitch Parker Group.
Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So if somebody is considering buying into a development that's a managed property,
Right.
What should they look at when they consider that opportunity?
You know, the most important factor is really the actual development. So, as good as the management could be, if the actual development's not good, then you're probably not going to be in for a good ride along the way. So I'd say that's actually probably like the foundation of it all.
And how would you look at that?
I mean, I think that would be the same way you'd evaluate a lot of other real estate investments. So you want to look at things like the local economics, you want to look at the rentability, the how much can you get for rent, how easy is it to find a tenant, what are the demographics in the area, all things like that.
And those are equally important when you can't see the asset as when the asset is already there.
That's right, exactly, totally.
And so on that point, if you're going to be investing into an asset that's not quite tangible just yet, what would be important to look at given the fact that it's not there?
Right, so I mean, the one thing you really want to look at is who's developing it, right? So does the team have the experience necessary? Have they done this before? There's a lot of specialized management developments out there. So you get like student ones, you get seniors ones. Are the people who are doing it, are they specialists in that niche?
So really their background, their history, do they have proven success?
Exactly.
Because there's an additional element of risk if it doesn't exist there today, right?
That's right. And, it may not be a different, like a more of a risk, but, the worst thing that could happen is if you buy into one of these developments, 2 years down the road, you find out the thing's not going to be built. You're going to get your deposit back because it's all insured, but you just lost 2 years,
of investment
opportunity.
So what else would you want to look for in the contracts when you're looking at developments?
Right. So you would definitely want to have a lawyer review that management contract, because what could be pitched to you may be very different than what's in that actual contract. So, but I think really the key things that you want to be able to focus on is what's covered in that. Are they assuring that you're not going to have any vacancies? What happens if there's a repair that needs to be done in the unit? How long is the term for? What happens if you need to sell before the end of that contract? Really,
right, so just really know what's going to happen in all of those situations.
Yeah, it's, there's no substitute for due diligence. It comes with any real investment. You just really can't get around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in some of these developments, and I don't know if this is what you've seen, is that there's both property management side and there's the development side.
Right.
What kind of additional due diligence would you do for the property management? Because once it's built, they're going to be taking over your investment.
Exactly. So, similar to the developer, you want to be able to look and see, have these people managed this type of thing before?
Right.
And usually a quick Google search will reveal that. Also asking questions to the developer. A lot of times if you ask the developer, they'll put you in contact with who that management company is going to be.
Right.
And you're able to ask your questions there. And, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, right? Because at the end of the day, this is your money and nobody's going to look after it more than you will.
Right, and doing that upfront due diligence on both elements is really critical.
And, doing it upfront is the only option.
Totally.
Because once you sign that agreement and the deal goes firm, it's hard to, get your questions answered at that point.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's some instances where the management term actually ends. So whether it's the developer is buying it back or the project is going to be sold, what would typically happen in that scenario?
So you really have two different scenarios. So scenario one would be, there's some developments out there that will say, we'll rent your unit back from you for a period of 1 or 2 years.
Right.
And then after that, it's on you. So, and you have to know that going in. It's one of the things that one of the questions you have to ask, because while it's all great year 1 and 2? Are you prepared to be that active landlord year 3?
Right.
And then, flipping that over, there's other developments that will actually say, management is going to actually manage that property for the first, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever the timeline is. But then they're actually going to buy all the units back from the owners.
And is that a typical strategy for the developer to sort of gain funding until it's up off the ground?
So, there's a few different reasons why. One is funding, one is stabilizing the asset. The other thing is some investors, they want a predefined exit date.
Yes.
One of the things with real estate is you can hold it for 25 years if you really want to, but some people want to say, I'm going to buy today. Management is going to buy it back from me on this specific date. So then you can make financial planning that much easier.
Well, and especially if you're investing the money because you need it for a retirement or for something that's coming up in your life. Most times people do need that money back. So it's helpful to understand and exit.
And some of these developments, you're going to get different options. So if you want to buy, some of them will actually give you like a fixed rate of return. Some will give you a market rate of return.
Yeah.
And again, it goes development to development, but this all ties into the due diligence that you're going to have to be doing.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the contractual elements and the nuances of, management and upfront, but what recommendations would you have in terms of looking at the deal itself, looking at the numbers? What would you recommend that a potential investor explore when they're considering an opportunity?
Yeah, so I always look at the location as one of the first things I look at, right? So if I'm buying a unit, let's say, for this, we'll use seniors housing.
Yeah.
So does the area support the lifestyle that a senior would want to live in? Because that's ultimately what's going to attract them to the neighborhood. The other thing you want to look at is there money in the neighborhood? So if it's a high-end development, you probably want it to be in an area that's more well-established, where the average income is higher.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, are there amenities in the area, right? So this works both for seniors or for students. They're probably going to want things to do.
For sure. And then, of course, there's the numbers itself. You got to do that crunching.
Of course, there's always the number crunching itself. And that number process is really going to be on an individual basis, because some people are comfortable with a higher risk, some people are comfortable with a lower return, but knowing that it's a very safe investment. So that's where it becomes really on an individual basis.
Absolutely. And what I really like about some of these developments, and I know you're involved with them, is that in some instances they will make sure that there's no vacancies for you. So as a typical landlord, you may be worried, like, what happens if the property's vacant for a couple of months? But in this instance, where maybe there's guaranteed no maintenance fees, those kinds of things can really make these kinds of investments more lucrative.
That's right. So, you brought it up just there, but the one that I'm working on now, we have a 5-year management guarantee.
Okay.
So what that's going to do is assure anybody who buys that there'll be no vacancies for 5 years. And then property management actually covers your condo fees, your property taxes, any repairs that need to be done, any special assessments that might happen. So really what it does is it's really a passive investment for that buyer.
Now, I know I've heard about these kinds of things before, and this is a really great project that you're working on. I've heard investors say, projects like this where there's no vacancy and there's no extra fees, is too good to be true. What would you say to an investor whose response is that?
I've had a couple of people bring that up with me.
Yeah.
And, real estate is one of the things where risk is not necessarily tied to reward. And I
love that you said that, because I think too many people don't recognize that.
For sure. And I've been involved in a lot of deals where it's super safe and the returns are awesome. And so this is one of those things where it may sound too good to be true, but with these developments, you're getting opportunities and structures where you can offer all these things, and there's no more of a risk for either the developer or the management company to put that into place, especially a good management company that knows that they're going to fill the units.
Absolutely. And I think that sophisticated investors who have experience and education are well aware that there are these additional structures out there, and that, exactly like you said, higher return does not always guarantee a higher risk.
No, exactly.
So if folks out there are interested in connecting with you, what's the best way to reach out to talk to you about some of your projects or more on this topic?
Sure. So people can always email me at info@mitchparkergroup.com. You can also find me on social media at Mitch Parker RE. And then this development that we're launching is the Founders Residences.
Fantastic. Well, Mitch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Be sure to watch The Fortunate Future on TV and online. For more information, go to our website, thefortunatefuture.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified when new videos are posted. Until next time, your fortunate future awaits.